Mia Marcano was born in the family of Marlon and Emma Marcano. A little later in their family, there was a second child, a boy who was named the same as his father, Marlon. At home, he was affectionately called Marl Jr. The family lived in the town of Pembroke Pines in the state of Florida. When the girl was 6 years old, parents divorced, but both father and mother maintained human relations with her. The father had a new lover, Giselle, and surprisingly, the children warmly accepted her. They had no quarrels and scandals, often played together and attended entertainment events. Mia was considered enterprising, hardworking, and talented student, attracted to herself with a special charm and energy. After graduation, she did not leave the state and applied to the Regional University of Central Florida, also considered studying at Valencia College, where she could become a Bachelor of Arts. Then there were plans to become a sports medic, helping athletes recover from serious injuries and arranging appropriate therapy. Mia has always been drawn to art in many forms, fashion and design. Therefore, the inquisitive girl often attended local festivals, shows, and exhibitions. Such events were held in her state almost every 2 weeks. This was one of the motivations to stay here. Home and small homeland, the perfect place. Here, she developed and created. During her college years, she left her dad and stepmom's house and moved into the Adwan Villas housing development. Many students from her school rented apartments there. The girl did not want to depend on anyone financially and looked for part-time work. She managed to find a decent option in one real estate agency. Mia's tasks included showing apartments to clients and arranging leases for new tenants. The place of work was a 10-minute walk from the university. The supervisor arranged an optimal schedule for the student to combine with her studies. Her parents' home was an hour's flight from the school, and the girl flew to visit her relatives on weekends. September 24, 2021 was a normal day as Mia packed up to go home. The process was set up, and her parents were eagerly waiting for her. However, their daughter did not arrive this time. Not only that, she did not contact or even board the flight and was not at the airport that day. The family was alarmed, not on a joke, because such a disappearance before the girl did not allow. The father went to the airport. The plane landed, but there was no daughter among the passengers. To call and send her messages was useless. In response, silence. At 9:30 p.m., the worried parents went to the local police, asking them to send officers to the Arden Villas housing estate. Perhaps nothing untoward had happened, but a check wouldn't hurt. Sheriff's Deputy Samir Puolino decided not to involve deputies and traveled alone to said apartment complex on a private jet. The flight took 50 minutes. Samir was already there at 10:30 p.m., questioned the residents, lodgers, janitors. It turned out that no one had seen her that day. One woman advised to wait for the students' friends, as they were her roommates and might know something. It took about 15 minutes to wait for the girls. They tried to open the door of the room, but the lock would not yield to the key. It all seemed very strange. No one responded to the knocks and calls. Samir then decided to examine the room through the window and found that the entrance door was blocked by a small cupboard. The policeman allowed himself to climb inside and saw a frightening picture. Things and clothes scattered everywhere. There were numerous red stains on the pillow. The bedding was torn, jewelry broken. The suitcase that Mia usually flew with is packed and put in a corner. Plus, the windows should have security locks on them that the girl's dad had put in, but someone had broken them before Samir arrived. That's why it was so easy for the deputy to get into the room. He found no clues as to the students' whereabouts. But the surroundings of the room warranted a major investigation. Paulino conferred with his supervisor, Corporal Dale. Both had not yet filed a criminal complaint. Samir was still dealing with other cases and calls and was not in a hurry to make conclusions after the inspection of Mia's room. Meanwhile, her roommate was greatly disturbed by the policeman's visit and her friend's disappearance. Without waiting for the authorities to react, she herself went to the police station near Arden Villas. The officers recorded her statement and pointed her finger at a suspicious man working in the neighborhood. He was showing a lot of attention to Mia, who did not reciprocate it. This person turned out to be Armando Caballero, a 27-year-old employee of the apartment building who cleaned the grounds. His excessive infatuation with Mia and even her stalking was confirmed by many witnesses. neighbors, janitors, and others. Perhaps Armando was in love with the 19-year-old student and did not want to put up with her rejections. But his behavior resembled obsession. He didn't realize that all his invitations to date were futile. Mia feared such a beau and tried to avoid communicating with him. Did not help him even a fancy gift. A transfer of $700 through the Cash App with the comment, "To the most beautiful girl on earth." The girl did not need a handout and transferred this amount back with the comment, "You don't need to buy me." When Mia disappeared, other young women living in the complex confessed to the police that the indefatigable Armando was stalking them too, explaining his behavior with ardent love. One girl he asked out on a date via a note back in March 2021. He called her to a luxurious restaurant with live music, and the young lady initially agreed but gave a refusal at the last moment. Heated Caballero was very angry and promised revenge. That same night, a stone flew into the window of the refuser. In this flight, she suspected Armando, called the police. The officers took a statement, organized several raids, and their work was completed. The case was quickly closed without charging anyone. On September 25th, Mia's family arrived at Arden Villas early in the morning. Paulino escorted them to their daughter's room, where nothing had changed since the last inspection. After looking around the room, the parents highlighted the following nuances that Samir had missed. A knife for cutting cardboard boxes under the bed. A teddy bear on the floor, although Mia adored it and treated it carefully. Scattered and broken jewelry. The girl never let herself do that. An hour later, Armando himself came to the room with his companion. Logically, the man should have been at work, but he came here. The girl's parents knew very well what kind of character he was, and their daughter often complained about him, and the police had already pointed him out as an indirect suspect. When asked why he had come here and brought a friend, he said that he knew from an acquaintance about the disappearance of the girl and was very concerned about it and wanted to know the details of what had happened. He introduced the acquaintance as Tati, who was also his colleague. One of the police officers examined the roster of employees of the complex. No Tati was found in it. But Armando continued to claim that it was a woman with that name who had given him the unpleasant news. Mia's parents looked at him with contempt, based on their daughter's story, and had no doubt that he was not telling the truth. In their opinion, he was the #1 suspect in the case, but he ignored all the accusations, explained that he was incapable of hurting Mia and had not seen her himself the day she disappeared. The police at that moment saw no point in talking to him anymore, and they had no right to detain him. He silently left the premises, got into a car, and drove away. Meanwhile, the sheriff and his deputies got busy looking into Armando's personality and background and discovered some interesting facts. In 2013, an arrest for using homemade explosives in a student dormitory, causing property damage and shooting on campus. In 2017, aggravated assault on citizens with a deadly weapon. In 2013, Polk County Police arrived on a call to that dormitory. The perpetrator confessed to what he had done and attributed his misdemeanor to wanting to play a joke on the residents. Fortunately, no one was killed or injured at the time. The facts found spoke of Armando's violent character and even inadequacy, and the investigators paid close attention to him. The security guard working at the apartment building on the day Mia went missing lifted fingerprints from the window and broken security features in her room. A special tape helped him do it. But Samir Paulino did not take this material because he did not consider the case to be of special importance. The guard also pointed out to the police some other things. On the back seat of Caballero's car, there was a screwdriver and a cell phone case that belonged to Mia. But police at the time did not have a warrant to open the citizen's car and search it. Orange County Sheriff John Mina got involved and said that his officers had examined the video surveillance cameras in the LCD. And the picture they got is not enough to arrest Armando. It is not of the best quality and does not depict what happened that night and day. Soon, the sheriff from Mia's hometown arrived. He had known the girl since she was a child and was greatly disturbed by her disappearance. He promptly involved the search services and gave the order to start an official investigation. The parents of the missing girl insisted on a search of Armando's apartment because his behavior is strange and he is probably hiding something. The investigators agreed with this decision and were waiting for the necessary warrant from the higher authority. Mia Marcano himself conducted surveillance of the suspect's house without any coordination, skillfully hiding in a car. Mia's father saw the following picture. Armando came out of the driveway with gloves, a backpack, and a pink plaid that belonged to the missing student. Soon the warrant was obtained, and the cops paid a visit to Caballero, taking both Marlon and Mia Marcano with them. Only they are not supposed to touch anything while the search is going on. They were only allowed to look. However, because of the bureaucracy and long organization, the police were late. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Armando fled in an unknown direction. This act was interpreted as a runaway, and at 4:30 in the afternoon, the man was officially declared the main suspect in the disappearance of the girl. His apartment was never entered, although they had the authority to break in. The runaway himself contacted a friend at 9:30 p.m., and he disappeared shortly thereafter. It's possible they may have run away together. They tried to find the girl dead or alive. This work was carried out not only by authorized bodies, but also by hundreds of volunteers. Significant areas were searched, but no trace of Mia was found. Specialists analyzed the information about the house where the girl lived in that LCD. In the afternoon at 2:15, the day before Mia went missing, someone entered the premises using her electronic pass. That person turned out to be Armando. A couple hours later, he came back inside. An hour later, the girl herself used that pass. She ran to get her things to go to the airport. Only she never made it to the airport. The information received led to the conclusion that Caballero went into the room and waited there for the appearance of Mia. And at 5:52 p.m., his vehicle was spotted leaving the complex. After reviewing the camera footage, it was clear that the student had shown up at the house but did not leave on her own. Either she was smuggled out or she's still within the confines of the apartment complex. On September 27, law enforcement had an official document to arrest Armando, so far only on burglary charges. Although many realized that his crime was more severe, it was impossible to prove it yet. Specialists were preparing to declare the suspect in the federal wanted list as they received a call with shocking news. Armando Caballero left his life. He committed suicide. Events were developing rapidly, and there was a fear that information about the whereabouts and details of Mia's disappearance could never be learned. However, the police already had Armando's cell phone at their disposal with useful information. It turned out that the man had recorded a call to technical support from the girl's house. And it happened at 7:01 p.m., a couple hours after she went missing. Forensics thought the call was a sham to deflect suspicion, because at 7:11 p.m., Caballero was already in front of the entrance to the apartment building asking to be let in. At 7:16 p.m., someone stole a bunch of keys to Mia's apartment. It's possible the thief was Armando, and the guards wouldn't confirm his guilt, but they were 100% sure it wasn't Mia who left the house. At 7:40 p.m., Caballero had already left the compound by car, heading to his former residential address, where he stayed for 20 minutes. That area was full of abandoned buildings and dense vegetation that transitioned into a wooded area. This sector was terrifying, even in daylight. Armando's old house was half destroyed, and what the former owner had been doing in it for 20 minutes remained a mystery. Previously, search teams had explored many locations, but never came here. Now the investigators had a specific area to explore, and all forces were brought in to do the job, including the FBI. All the circumstances were such that the girl was unlikely to be found alive. But her relatives and friends still nourished hope for a better outcome and prayed to the light forces and attracted public attention to the case. Search operations continued until October 2, 2021. On that day, even the slightest chance of success was destroyed. 18 miles away from the famed Arden Villas housing estate, in an abandoned section where Armando was visiting, the corpse of Mia Marcano was found in dense bushes, among the junk. Her hands, feet, and mouth were taped with black duct tape. The only clothes the victim was wearing were jeans, a blouse, and a bra. A bag with a passport and a shirt, in which the girl was last seen during her lifetime, was also in a row. Later, an autopsy proved the fact of violent death. But since the body was badly decomposed, they couldn't identify the method of murder. The report also failed to show signs of rape. In the place where Armando killed himself, they found hair and drops of blood belonging to Mia. They found remnants of the same duct tape in the perpetrator's car. They also examined Caballero's own body. The body was covered with various injuries and his fingers showed signs of human bites. It's likely that Mia fought back desperately in the act of violence. With the prime suspect dead and no new evidence coming to light, the case was closed, and the public never learned what happened that fateful day. The horrifying event did bring some relief. The family was heartbroken, but was able to organize a decent funeral for her daughter. The memorial service was held on October 15, 2021. The event was attended by over 2,000 people. The victim's parents also agreed to a television broadcast on a local TV channel. About 500 people chose to wear the victim's favorite color, blue. All honored Mia's short but bright comet-like life. The outcome of the case shocked many. It drew particular ire from the residents of the Arden Villas housing estate. It turned out that their security was quite fragile, and the death of the unfortunate girl only instilled more fear. Residents of the complex have always been concerned about the extended powers of the maintenance staff. For example, such workers could quietly enter any apartment at any time. Okay, if the worker is honest and decent. But what if he is like Armando or worse? Similar questions were addressed to the management company. Citizens also insisted that electronic passes be canceled or improved. The system in place in their building did not guarantee anyone's safety. The case was closed, but the outcry in its aftermath was massive. An internal investigation determined incompetent actions of sheriff's deputies at the beginning of the investigation. The same Samir Paulino, the first to inspect Mia's room, did not follow the proper rules during the search, did not inform the head about important details, blood on the pillow and damaged jewelry. Because of such shortcomings, the girl was registered as a person who fled to an unknown destination of her own free will. The fact of abduction was not identified. Neither Samir nor his supervisor reported the missing student to the criminal department. A great deal of time was lost, and a large-scale search began significantly later. Supervisor Rick Raymond, formerly an officer in the police department and now a private investigator, pointed out key mistakes by police officers. When Armando showed up at Mia's apartment the next 24 hours after her disappearance, they should have detained him under any pretext. That way, investigators would have bought time and not had to agonize over finding a suspect later. When the dead girl's family demanded to detain this citizen because of the mass of other evidence, it was not necessary to ignore their requests. It took too long to get a search warrant for Armando's apartment. The man escaped. Sheriff Mina responded to these claims by saying that Samir Paulino did not have the full information during the initial inspection, which the specialist took possession of later. And then it took quite some time to uncover other evidence. But in general, Raymond is right. Internal Affairs took an interest in the work of Samir Paulino and his boss. Allegations of unprofessional standards were prepared. Based on past mistakes, adjustments have been made to the algorithm for officers responding to missing persons reports. Police officers are now required to refer any findings to the Criminal Investigation Department. Samir Paulino was disciplined with 150 hours of suspension. Corporal Kenneth Dale, his supervisor, received a similar sanction, only in a lesser amount, 10 hours. It was published by the police in March 2022 and included over 100 pages. It detailed all the information on Armando Caballero and the justification for treating him as the only suspect in the case of the disappearance and murder of Mia Marcano. The girl's family filed 2 lawsuits in the meantime. The first is against the Arden Villas housing development for the poor security organization of its residents that led to their daughter's death. The second is against the Orange County Sheriff for negligently handling the case and refusing to treat Mia's room as a crime scene. The company that owns the apartment complex in question responded that it would not allow such tragedies to happen in the area under its jurisdiction in the future and would improve its security technology. The defendant also added that Armando Caballero had been thoroughly vetted by the immigration office and the utility provider. No information was received about his violations of the law, nor did the burglary and sexual harassment make it into the file. Marcano's family accused the company of long ignoring their reports of their daughter's disappearance, and this organization has not acknowledged what happened or helped search for the missing girl and their employee. The victims' parents hope that there will be a real change for the better in the LCD, and they will get answers to their burning questions. As for the agency that launched that investigation, their employees have received their own criticism from the Marcano family as well. They were not informed about the progress of the investigation, the evidence found, and so on. In response, they kept saying that the investigation was ongoing. A public picket was organized against the company that owns Arden Villas. Citizens complained to the mayor's office and the courts about the poor organization of protection in this complex and other problems. Outdated video surveillance cameras with low resolution and picture quality, poor lighting in entrances and courtyards, general terrible maintenance. So, because of the poor lighting and lack of cameras in the parking lot, the perpetrator was able to get away quickly. Marcano's family initiated a high-profile lawsuit in court, and their lawsuit against Arden Villas was fully successful. In June 2022, the local Senate released the Mia Act. It required owners of real estate and especially large complexes to conduct scrupulous background checks on their potential employees. Citizens with violent criminal records are barred from working at such facilities. And the owners must keep a registration log in paper or electronic form, reflecting the exact time of the transfer of keys to any apartment. The person with passport data, who receives these keys, is also obligatorily indicated. And when the maintenance staff really need access to a particular apartment, they must inform the tenant of their visit 24 hours in advance. On the day Mia was to turn 20, her parents received a symbolic key to the town of Pembroke Pines. And in its history, the day of the girl's birth is officially inscribed as Mia Marcano Day. Then her family founded its own foundation, the main mission of which became support, education, and material assistance to citizens whose relatives are missing. The second range of objectives, the protection of students from weaker sections of the population. They are the ones who often volunteer in the search for the missing and are entitled to certain bonuses and allowances. Marcano's next activity is the MMF Safe and Secure Accreditation Program. Her goals: ensuring optimum safety in multifamily apartment buildings and complex, guaranteed staff development. Many measures are being implemented, and the residents of the complex are grateful to Marcano for their public policy. When the girl was supposed to fly home for the weekend as usual, tragedy struck. The details of her disappearance and death shocked her family and friends forever. To this day, there are many unanswered mysteries in the case. Life without Mia continues. The girl's aunt admitted that it is necessary to appreciate every minute because time ruthlessly flees. The brother believes that even if great happiness comes into his life, it will not bring him true joy because he will not be able to share it with his sister, who has always shared with him victories and defeats. Mom believes that everyone goes their own way, but she is stopped and will not find peace for the rest of her life until she finds out why her daughter was killed so brutally.